on career counseling, it is extremely important to understand why you should take your career choice seriously. In this video, we will help you understand the importance of making the right career choice for yourself. So, why is your career choice so important? It is important because it determines a lot of things in your life, including number 1, quality of life. Your career choice plays a huge role in deciding where you live, how flexible your life is, and the kinds of things you are able to do in your free time. Number 2, identity. Ask any elder person about their career and they will tell you about it as a part of their identity. They'll say something like, I am a journalist, instead of, I report news. Notice how everybody asks you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And not, what do you want to do when you grow up? This shows that your career choice shapes your identity. Number 3, impact. Every human life touches thousands of other lives in so many different ways. If you select any 60-year-old person who is about to retire, take a time machine, find him as an infant, throw that infant into trash, and then come back to the present day, you'll find that a countless number of things around you have changed. So whatever career you choose, the world will be affected by it. Anything that determines your quality of life, your identity, and the impact that you make should be taken very seriously. And that includes your career choice also. So we hope that this short video could help you understand the importance of making the right career choice. Having done that, we will now move forward to start our career counseling course. We are pretty excited and we hope you are too. So, let's begin. See you. Great. So guys, good evening and welcome everyone to ProBano's 47th episode of the Daily Life Career Guidance podcast. And today we have with us Mr. Saurav Ghosh. And before we ask him a question, I'll make sure that I introduce him. So, starting with the introduction, Saurav is a musician, educator, and entrepreneur. At London's Middlesex University, he studied jazz drum set with Pete Carter and Richard Brook as a part of the London Center of Contemporary Music. He has also studied under the renowned American drummers and educators John Riley and Dave Dicenso. Prior to London, he studied at the International College of Music in Kuala Lumpur and trained under prolific drummer Lewis Pragasam. I hope I pronounced his name right. Founder of the Asia Beat Project. Saurav has been associated with the True School of Music in Mumbai since the last 5 years and is currently the Associate Dean of the school. Under Saurav's leadership, TSM, which is True School of Music, created India's first K-12 music program, which is currently being piloted at some of Mumbai's premier schools. Over the last 2 years, he has been working closely with the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship under the Government of India to create standards and qualification packs for various professions in the music industry. Saurav continues to play in concerts in Mumbai alongside prominent Indian musicians. A highlight of Saurav's career was when he performed with Grammy-nominated jazz piano player John DiMartino in his Indian tour. He is currently pursuing masters in education that will enable him to pursue his dream of an India where every child has the access to basic music education. So yeah, I think that's a very long introduction, and that totally matches with what Saurav has done till now at such a young age. So I would really like to ask Saurav. So if I think he's back with us. There was some minor disconnection.
Sorry.
So Saurav is back with us. So Saurav, just to update you, I've already made your introduction.
Super.
And today is a very nice day because It's our 47th day on the trot. We are closing in on 50. So we are almost there with a half century of podcasts daily.
That's amazing.
And we're really excited
Congratulations.
to know more about music, careers in music, and your journey. So my first question to you would be, from when you were in 12th class or 10th class till here, how the journey has been, and what all did you think of while coming into a career in music? Like, did you always know that you were going to be a musician, or was it something else you were going to do initially and then you switched?
It's a good question. I mean, to sum it up, I would say perhaps it's been a real magical journey. No short of magic, I must say,
Hmm.
because it's not an everyday story. And I was aware right from the start that, this was not going to be an everyday story. And to answer your question, I did think of being something else before music, and it was an architect. But I remember my dad clearly mentioning to me that, and this was the time I was going from class 8 to class 9. And in our school, you could make a choice between science and commerce and computers at that age. And he was like, listen, if you want to be an architect, you need to take up science. And I was like, what? Really? I thought like you just use your imagination and design amazing buildings, right? And he was like, no, I'm so sorry. And at that point, I was like, okay, cool. So, but I did take science in 9 and 10. I did drop it for 11th and 12th. But by this point, I had discovered music already. I was about 12 or 13 when sort of the drum set came into my life through my older brother, who I'm incredibly grateful to for. And I fell in love with the instrument, and by virtue of that, music. And my parents were incredibly sort of supportive throughout those early years. My mom is a classical dancer, so she kind of understood what I was trying to do, and she always encouraged. My dad was an engineer, and he probably didn't understand a lot, but he was trying to be a good dad and be supportive. He didn't really know much about music or the career options. He just knew that, yeah, sure, there are people like Sonu Nigam who sing on TV and sing behind films, and they probably make some money. So maybe there's something here, right?
Hmm.
So at about age 14 or 15, I realized, okay, this is what I really want to do. I was into music then. I had a lot of musician friends. I used to hang out with older people that were part of bands. They really formed the way I thought, and the way I thought at that point, and the way I looked at music and my life and my career. And I'd also at that point discovered music education as a vocation. I didn't know it existed, right? Just like hopefully many people on this call today perhaps
Yeah.
that don't know that music education, formal music education is a thing outside of Trinity grade 4 or ABRSM grade 3. Like, there's, you can go to college and study music. You can do a master's in music. You can do a PhD in music. You can do a doctorate in all of these options exist, and then there are many sort of subdivisions and tributaries of music education, going into music therapy and music and technology and all of those kinds of things, right? So I discovered music education at this point thanks to a good friend of mine who was also a drummer, 4 or 5 years older to me, and a different school, and he went to the Berklee College of Music in Boston, and I was like, wow, what the hell? What is this place? And I really want to go. And it sounded like Hogwarts to me at that point, and like and that was it. And I was like, okay, now that means, oh, so there's academics beyond this point, so my dad will be okay with it. I'm not just saying, hey, I'm going to finish school and then be a musician. I'm saying, hey, I want to go study music formally and be a trained musician and add some value to society. So that was the general trajectory. And I remember after, in the middle of my class 12 boards, I was giving an audition for Berklee College of Music. And in those days, Berklee, they used to go around the world taking auditions, but they would never stop in India because there were not many kids from India going for Western music education to Berklee. So the closest stop was Kuala Lumpur. So I remember in between my English language um, final exam, my board exam, March of 2008, and my commerce exam. There was like 4 days or something like that. And I had taken a quick flight, went to Kuala Lumpur, gave the audition, came back, and then continued with my board exam. So my parents were incredibly supportive, to be honest. And they allowed me to do all those things, believed in me, and thought that there was some value in what I was trying to do. And the minute I went to college, first, I didn't go to Berklee because I didn't get through that first year. And I was incredibly crestfallen, but, they helped cheer me up. And I did go to the school that I went to audition at Kuala Lumpur first. for 2 years. And after that, I transferred to England and I finished my bachelor degree in 2014, throughout which, like, of course, I had their support, but I didn't really take it for granted. I didn't take their support for granted because I knew that what these guys were supporting was something out of the ordinary. And I knew that there would be a lot of questions had this not worked out for me. It would have been a massive gamble and a lot of money spent for a great experience, but no real monetary output at the other end. So yeah, does that sum up? Does that answer your question broadly?
Yeah, it does give us a good start, and it's
Okay.
amazing to know that willingness to do something different, along with parental support, always creates magic. Um,
Absolutely, 100%.
So now I would like to address a few audience comments, and I think a few people
Sure.
are already missing Samant, who's our daily host. And today, for the first time in I think 47 days, I am hosting. So I hope I do half a good as job as him.
Okay.
So Anita ji is saying, I hope Samant is well. Yeah, Anita ji, he's well. The only thing is, yeah, he was feeling a bit uneasy today. So I thought that, okay, maybe today is a day to give him some rest, but he's definitely watching. And Samant, you can surely put in a comment as a reply to Anita ji to
Hi, Saman.
let
Missed
her
you
know.
today.
Yeah, miss you too. So, okay, so Anita ji, hello, good evening. My mom says good evening. Hello, mom. So, hi guys, and yeah, do keep putting in your questions. We'll be loving to answer them all. And till you put in your questions, I have one question. So, Saurav, you said that you caught a flight to Kuala Lumpur. Now, that must be expensive, right? So, I'm thinking, do people with lesser money and lesser resources, like the people who are from, let's say, tier 2 cities or tier 3 cities or maybe rural areas, can they dream of
Yeah.
a good career in music?
Yes, they can. I mean, the short answer is yes, they can, and
Mm-hmm.
the long answer is, of course, there's some amount of navigation that you may have to do uh, as trying to make it in the music industry. And in India, our music industry is not formalized. It's far from being a formal music industry. A lot of it happens under the table. You will be surprised to know how many people. I live in Bombay now, and I was surprised when I came back and started living in Bombay, how many music producers exist? Like there are so many people, trained, untrained, qualified, semi-qualified, perhaps not qualified. Loads of people are working in the music industry and have had little or no training through formal music education. Of course, they've
Mm-hmm.
self-taught and self-learned.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, there is, and I've seen loads of people from small towns who do make it. There was a good friend of mine, actually not a friend of mine, an acquaintance of mine from Calcutta, who was a very talented guitar player. He ended up playing guitar for Preetham and Euphoria, and he toured all
Wow.
around the world with them. There are some
Wow.
more people like that who I know at the moment to do that. So it is possible, but yeah, the struggle, it you have to chart your own path out. And when it comes to the money aspect of it, at that point, it was not possible to sort of get that kind of exposure and training in India for Western music, particularly, of course. And but now it is, like, as part of the True School. I've been there for the last 5 years, and I remember when I was in London, potentially in my second year, and I saw this ad, this really fancy ad of the True School on YouTube or something, and I was shocked, and I was like, "What?" So there's like this really cool music school in India now,
Right.
and I mean, a little bit of me wanted to be there, but also I was like, "Oh my God!" For the next generation and for the future generations of musicians, they don't need to go abroad to seek that quality and that level of education and be in that surrounding and that the habitat, that musical habitat that you need to be in during your development years, and that's something Indian musicians miss the most because we often don't find like-minded people to spend enough time with in order to develop a meaningful narrative, basically in within music.
Right. So now that brings me to True School of Music, because you
Right.
did mention till the time that you did your bachelor's in music and with what thought process you went ahead with that. Um, After that, how did this happen? Like, how did you end up being a music
Right.
educator and an entrepreneur? That's a really, interesting thing. Like all of us would be wanting to know that. How did this shift happen?
Sure. So I mean, if I back up a couple of steps, um, still after music school. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, right? I mean, of course, the feeling is always I want to play. I mean, I've come here to study my instrument. I've been passionate about music and this instrument for so long. The end goal is sure, I just want to play. I want to play. I want to perform live. I potentially want to tour the country and the world and be a well-known practitioner, a music practitioner, right? But obviously, you realize there's a point where you realize, okay, but that's not something I can achieve right now. It's something that I have to develop over a period of time. And naturally, for many musicians, I feel like education comes within their scope, within their skill set. And I naturally leaned towards education. I came back to India, and I didn't really want to come back from London, but a bunch of different family circumstances brought me back to India. And at that point, I was like left with a few options. Okay, either uh, I don't know, spend the next few years building those contacts again, building meaningful musical relationships, and um, creatively pursuing something of my own, or lending my understanding and expertise to something that exists already. And I had at that point applied to a couple of schools. There were only a handful in the country, literally like 4 or 5, and they're in the major metropolises of the country. And I was very, very lucky to get a call from this very kind gentleman called Dr. Joachim Junghans, who was my boss at that point, the dean of the school. And he has an incredible, prolific past. I'll tell you about him on another call, perhaps. And that interview went really well. And within a month from then, I was at the two schools. So I believe it was a bit of luck and a bit of right timing, and the fact that we had a genuine conversation, and we probably hit it off with each other, and he called me over, and that's how two schools started, right? Yeah.
That's really nice. And Saurav, I also wanted to know, because I did mention while your introduction was on that you're a drummer, like that's your main
Hmm.
instrument. So I would also like to know, what all do you play? Like, what all instruments do you play, and are you a vocalist also?
Right. No, I'm not a vocalist. To answer your question, I probably am not a good vocalist at all. I can functionally sing just to sort of, I don't know, entertain myself. But I'm predominantly a drummer. I play some percussion instruments. I haven't learned them professionally, but I picked them up as I went. Trained in the drum set, and that's my primary instrument. Apart from that, I play a little bit of keyboard and guitar, but all of it at super elementary level.
Mhm.
Uh, Nothing to impress anybody. So yeah, it's really just the drums. And at the True School also, I first started off as HOD of drums, and from there kind of progressed onto slightly deeper positions, and took up more administrative tasks, which I was very happy to do at that point.
Right. So do you teach also, or are you mostly towards the administration side of
So
things?
at the moment, I don't teach much. I teach a few online courses, and here and there when I need to substitute for a teacher, because over time our school has grown and the amount of work has increased, and there has been an increase in. Basically, what happened is, like, the school kind of took a turn somewhere like between 2 and 4 years, or 2 and 3 years ago. It kind of took a turn to become a lot more serious and become a
Mm-hmm.
sort of a serious player in the music education industry. And we started doing a lot more validations with universities abroad, and we started working with the government of India to sort of create, under the Ministry of Skill Development, and we wanted to create like a real vertical for music within the skill development ecosystem of the country. And we wanted to formalize ourselves. We wanted to give our certificate a weight, and we wanted to see that we were giving the best education that was available, and matching it to international standards. So hence, I haven't been teaching much, but we've been working a lot under the hood to try and achieve some other things. Yeah.
That's a really nice initiative, especially the one with the government of India you have taken,
Mm.
because I still remember the aim that you have, that is to give every child in India access to basic music education. And I think we were talking with Mr. Abhijit Ghosh, who is the guitarist of Bhumi Band. I'm sure
Right.
you must be familiar with them.
Of course.
Even Dr. Richard Gasper, the last, I think very recently. So when we were talking with both of them, and even we had two brothers who were, one of them was a drummer, one of them was a guitarist, Shiva and Sumit. So everyone we were talking with, I think all of them stressed very much on the fact that basic music education is needed in India. Not everybody, can be a singer or a drummer or a guitarist, but it is very necessary to have basic music education in India. So can you put a
Absolutely.
bit of light on why it is more important for everyone
Sure.
to know a bit of music?
Sure. Sure.
Like
Sure.
what can it help them with?
Like you said, it's not that everybody will become a singer or a guitar player or even take it up professionally, semi-professionally, or even as a hobby. They may never touch an instrument again. It's just that music education at a very early age helps children build some very important cognitive abilities. These are things that you cannot sort of and one of the I can name many, memory is one, because you learn to play by ear, you learn to play by memorizing parts, and so memory is one. The other thing is working in teams, because you play in a band, you play with other people, you try and understand communicating without the use of language. So you communicate through musical language, so that's artistic expression. You learn to take leadership roles from an early age by being some kind of a band leader or a section leader within an orchestra or something. So, there are all these other skills that are built from a very early age and subliminally. That's the best part. It's not like you're saying, oh, today we're going to teach you leadership. And 6-year-olds like, what the hell are you talking about? Right? It's more like just today we're going to play this piece. Hey, whatever, Dave, you are going to lead your ensemble section today. And, it makes a big impact over a period of time. Kids with music education from an early age do develop better at math, do develop better at language. I mean, there are plenty of studies to show that.
Right. And one more thing. So regarding music, so before moving on to the next question, I think I would also like to contribute my 2 cents to it.
Sure.
We always, when we go to provide career counseling in schools or colleges, we're always asked that what are the careers of the future, and the answer is the careers of right now plus what we don't know about, because obviously whatever, how much of a prophecy we can make, but
Sure.
there will be career options which we'll never know about. So like 20 years
Correct.
ago, who would ever predict that there will be a UX designer and
Exactly.
telephone clerks will not be there anymore, and
Exactly.
there will be web designers, etc. So all these careers are newly come up careers, and I think our parents are not very well conditioned to advise us
Mm.
because of the to pursue these careers, because
Right.
at their time these careers were not there. So the advice they
Right.
received, they are kind of giving us advice from that playbook only, I think, which has
Mm.
changed over some
Mm.
time. So with machine learning setting in, I think a lot of the current jobs will also be replaced and a lot of new ones will be created.
Right.
In that time, I think 21st century skills is what we call like common sense, creativity, leadership, what you talked
Right.
about, communication, team management. These things I think music can help us build. And not directly, as you said, we don't need to tell a certain child that,
Mm.
especially at 6 years, that you are going to
Mm.
learn leadership today. But I think it's very important for them to learn music, because this will indirectly not only build these 21st century skills in them, but will also help them kind of have something to look forward to in their day of education. Because in a way, this is very highly entertaining also.
Absolutely. I mean, that whole entertainment aspect of it, which is, I think, one thing that I wanted to add to your thing is like, it's obviously a strange time that we're living in right now. And to talk about live music in this time doesn't feel right at all. But there is something to live music, right? There's something significantly different that human beings feel when they attend live concerts as opposed to when they listen to recordings. And that feeling can never be replaced, no matter what you do. So playing live and attending live concerts and watching people play live or sing live or do anything live, and it's not just music, it's dance, it's poetry, it's like stand-up comedy, it's all of it. That effect, like stand-up comedy is a perfect example. Why do we ever need to go to a stand-up comedy show?
Right.
Like they should just I don't know, email us the video or something, right? It makes, but you still go there because you want to have that connect with that person live at that moment, who's saying things just for your entertainment, just for your pleasure. So I feel like live entertainment is a big part of our culture and who we are as people.
And even in times like these, when we are sitting at home, right? So there are 2-3 things we can do. Obviously we can work from home, but what is keeping us alive is the entertainment, right? We are
Correct.
getting to watch recorded TV shows, we are getting to
Thank God.
watch these live concerts, and tomorrow we are hosting one with Jagriti Yatra. So we know that how important entertainment is in our lives.
Right.
And it is also
Absolutely.
said very rightly that whatever machine learning accomplishes, the jobs in entertainment are going to be needed much more in the future. So that's a very good sign that the skills that jobs in entertainment require are very important skills. And if we build them, even if we are not directly related to the entertainment industry, we'll
Correct.
be really benefited if we have those skills which are required by the entertainment industry. So
Right.
I think that is also one really good case for everyone needing a basic music education.
Correct. Yeah.
So with this, I think one more question from my side. Then I would like to read a few audience comments and then transfer to our superstar host, Mr. Singh.
Sure.
So sort of one thing regarding the careers in music only, I want to ask that
Right.
when we think about a career in music, um, we are always limited by our lack of awareness of career options. So we would know that obviously, we can play a few instruments like the guitar, sitar, drums, tabla, etc. Or we can become a vocalist, which is the highest form of imagination of a career in music. So let's say if I would want to become a vocalist, and even on TV shows, so there are shows called the Indian Idol,
Sure. Yeah.
Saregamapa, then there was Voice of India. There are all these shows which focus a lot on singing. Why aren't there shows for instrument playing? Somebody who plays really good instruments. Why aren't there shows for that? Is that skill not needed, or is that skill less valued? What do you think?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's not. I don't know if it's not needed. Of course, it's needed. Otherwise, the singers would just be singing in the air, and
Right.
it wouldn't sound that good. But I feel like the Indian contemporary audience. You have to understand there's a difference between instrumental music and songs, right? Vocal performance led music. That's a whole thing, and that actually predominantly comes out of the film music industry. That whole, at least in the Indian context, that Bollywood has led that songs have to be with people and stuff like that. But there's a big distinction between instrumental music and non and vocal led music. In India, I think our instrumental music is our Indian classical music. Like we don't have uh, we don't have that much vocals in Indian classical. We do, but they often are playing, like, a vocalist is not singing over a sitar player and a tabalchi and a santoor player like she's the lead, or she or he is the leader and the rest of them are accompanists. It's mostly like they have their own space within that construct. But for Western music, or at least like we've imported Western music concepts from the West, and the song is very important. The lead vocalist is very important. The rest of the band is there to support the lead vocalist and what he or she is trying to do. So I think from that perspective, singing is obviously encouraged more. But it's a good question. Why don't they have, like, I don't know, best drama competition or something like that? I just feel like it probably, I don't know, it's not that attractive. It's not, it doesn't get that many TRP ratings. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I think it's a good case also for people, anyone who's watching and has the required, capability or the power to do it. Please definitely do put your thought to this idea. I think we also need a lot of good instrumentalists, and it would be really good if we can give them some credit for the amazing job that they are doing. And even in, I think, TV shows like, yeah, sorry.
Even like film music, like just to cut you, sorry to cut you short, but in film music, there's an incredible number of instrumentalists that are constantly producing work and working for music producers and music directors, but you will rarely ever hear of them. There is no, like, IFA Best Instrumentalist Award. There's IFA Best Vocal Performance Award. Like, so that's the distinction, I suppose. The director gets the fame, the vocalist gets the fame because he or she is the face of the entire thing. But the instrumentalists are a little bit at the back, which is fine.
Yeah, so I think, this is an interesting point to discuss, and I think this definitely would create a lot of curiosity in our minds, if not give a proper solution as to why aren't there shows like this, or why aren't, as Saurav said, why isn't there the best guitarist in a song, in a Bollywood song, something like that. So we probably have to see. So Saurav would like to read out an audience. I'll firstly read out a few audience comments. So Samant, our dear host, says hello everyone. Hello Saurav. Pushkar says hi all. Thanks, Pushkar, for being here on the podcast every day without fail. I think it's people like you who have supported us thus far. That's why we have been here at the 47th episode. And now I think we'll complete a half century very soon. Navdeep Deswal has clapped for us. Thank you so much, Navdeep, sir. And I think it's a pleasure to have people like you watching. Anita ji asks you, welcome Saurav. Your enthusiasm shows that you're pretty much happy. Do you always remain happy with your work, or sometimes you feel low? What keeps you carried on?
Thank you, Anita ji, for that question. Good question. Yes, I am pretty content with what I do, to be honest, because there's like very few things that you dream of at age 12, and almost 20 years since then, you are actually doing a similar bunch of things with and moving in the same direction. So yes, I am content, but also yes, there are many things that do provide discontent within the ecosystem of music, and it could be a very simple thing like um, let's say I'm at a gig and I'm playing a performance at a restaurant or something, or at a bar or at a nightclub, and someone requests for a song that I absolutely hate playing, right? It's totally possible. And it happens very often, in fact. So, yeah, so that's an example of something that I don't like doing. It probably makes me a bit unhappy to do, but I do it because it's like you play a functional role as a musician in society, and you don't, you should not always choose um, what you end up doing, because then you're not entertaining your audience, you're just playing for yourself. So yeah, so there are things within my career that don't excite me as much and don't give me as much inspiration and motivation and satisfaction, but I do them regardless, to the best of my ability, because they serve some higher purpose, at least in my mind, and also it's largely within the realm of what I dreamed of doing when I was a kid. And so, I don't really mind. I've played enough free shows in my life, and I've played enough I've had enough inquiries. Like, to every one gig that I've got confirmed, I've had 4 inquiries that did not materialize. So, like, who am I to choose? Like, this is gold.
Yeah, I think there are pros and cons to every career option, which you pursue. And obviously, it's the ability to adapt to situations, which are not so much in our favor, or it's our ability to adjust to whatever is bad in our career, and still be happy about the fact that we are doing at least the positive part is something which keeps us going.
Yeah, and you can't be happy all the time, and happiness is a vague concept, right? Like, it's not defined clearly at all. And within career, I don't look at it as separate things. That's a good thing about having music as your career. You don't. It's not. It's your life. It's not your career. It's, you live and breathe it. You're doing it because that's who you are. It's not like, oh, I am actually a writer, but I have a day job. That's not how it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope, Anita ji, that answers your question. I'll read one more audience comment, which has come from Samant, I think. So, and he has commented on, the thing that we were discussing about singing shows being there, but not, shows for people who are playing very good instruments. So, Samant says, regarding the overflow of singing shows and sparsity of instrumental shows is purely down to the business. Singing is more relatable in the masses as opposed to the technicalities of an instrument.
Right.
So with this, I would like to transfer on, to someone who the public is waiting for. And yeah, over to you, Mr. Sen.
Thank you, Aditya. Good evening. Namaskar. Welcome to the show, and a big hi to all our regular attendees and audience. Welcome, Saurav, to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you, actually. And so where do we start? I think I'm going to start by asking you, and for the benefit of the people who do not have much idea about what a formal education or a formal bachelor's degree in education is all about. So if you could go through the steps, so like what are the subjects you take? How is the grading done and all that? That would add a lot of, give a lot of information to everybody.
Sure. I'd be very happy to. I mean, it's very similar to any other stream, to be honest. Like, once you go into that formal education structure for music, it's actually very similar to other streams. But I'll tell you more about what we do, right? Like, because I studied a bachelor in music performance, and it had minor elements for music production as well. Now, what does that mean? That's super vague. You don't know what that, like, how does that sort of play out, right? So when you go to music school, if you want to be a performer, you have to pick a particular instrument, right? There's one main instrument, and you can pick minor instruments, and you can pick other instruments that you study on the side, but there's one principal study instrument. For me, that was the drum. So for the rest of your time at university, you are focused only on studying, learning, and being able to play the drum at different technical levels, and you're taken through the theory and the practical side of that throughout your time. So for me, it was 3 years. So first year, second year, third year, I would say about 50% of your time throughout university is being spent on your principal instrument through many different types of classes. Like one class, we had 4 different classes within the drum set idiom. One was like a sight reading class where you learn how to read music notation as applied on the drum kit. Then there was like a rudiment class where you learn the simple, basic hand movements that strengthen your technique. Then there was a class where you applied all of those techniques learned into musical context. So you could play the instrument, but with the theoretical information, but it just doesn't stay as theory, and you apply it instantly. And then there was a class where we learned new styles of music, and each style of music has its own sort of musical language, so as to speak. And sort of you learn the nuances of those languages and what makes it sound like blues drumming, what makes it sound like Afro-Cuban drumming, why, what are those? So there's like punctuation within each style of music that you have to learn to sort of convincingly play that style. So that's one, right? One aspect of music education while you're trying to be a performer at university. And then the other aspect is where they teach you everything else about music, everything that you need to know. And the first thing in music theory, how to read and write music notation, right? How to communicate with other musicians through written music. The second thing is oral training, which is like a huge part of music school, where the end goal is to develop your ears to a point where you can extract musical information without knowing, just by hearing it, basically, just orally. So if someone plays something on a piano, I should be able to tell you what notes he played just by listening to it. Or if someone plays a rhythm on a drum kit, I should be able to write out that rhythm on manuscript paper just by listening to it. So that's this your heightened sense of oral abilities, so that in a live situation you are able to respond. It's like me speaking to you right now, right? If I didn't know all of this, I wouldn't be able to respond to your question. So similarly for music, it's the same thing. And then there are classes on composition where you learn compositional techniques. What makes this Steely Dan song sound so great? What did they crack? What was it? What are the common chord progression? Why is Prince, this song of Prince, landmark in songwriting, etc. So you study different songs, different composers, different compositional techniques. And then you have tasks where you have to write for different types of ensembles. You write for a blues ensemble, you have to write for a string quartet, you write for a little horn section, like a trumpet, 2 saxophones. So these are the various kind of studies. And apart from this, of course, you have live playing. So every term you are with a group of unknown people, not unknown, they're all your batchmates, but like randomly picked. And for that term, you will be a band. At the end of the term, you will go perform outside at a venue in the city, but it's an assessment, really. It's a live assessment. So is there anything else? Yes, and then you have like minor studies. So I was a drummer, so I had to learn piano on the side. It was compulsory for everyone to learn piano. They taught you how to use music notation software. They taught you how to use music production software like Logic and Pro Tools. And apart from that, they used to have amazing master classes, workshops, and stuff like that, which always had like famous people coming in or stopping by. And those were really, some of those sessions really, really changed the way I think about certain things in music.
Brilliant. And I think you guys had a lot of fun when learning.
Oh my God, it was a dream come true. Yeah, it was really, I mean, for me, it was amazing because I was in London and I'd never imagined studying a music degree in London. That was just out of, like, it was not a thing that I grew up imagining, right? So when it was actually happening and when I was actually living in it, I considered myself incredibly privileged. And also I was making the most of it as I could. So my school was in the center of London, literally a 5-minute walk from London Bridge tube station. So it was like the best part. Like there was Southwark Cathedral on the right. Shakespeare had written poetry in there. So I was also like getting constantly invoked by all these things that I had studied as I was a kid. And I was very happy to be there. It was really nice time for me, and I had a lot of fun here.
Great. So since you had a lot of fun, you also learned a lot. And I think
Absolutely.
that's one of the reasons I think you are so enthusiastic at the moment. Now, could you also give us some idea about what sort of assessment or exams? I mean, all of us are used to studying by rote. So we all study by rote, and then we go to the exam hall and we spit it out.
Right.
It's been going on for ages.
Right.
I mean, I did it in our times, and you did it in your times. Like it's all the
so
same.
sad. It's so sad.
So, like, what are the exams like in a music degree?
Right. So it's hard. Like, in music, there's no such thing as studying by rote. I mean, there may be some aspects you can memorize and kind of try and spit out. But in music school, they're always looking for your creative expression. There's no two pieces of work are ever similar. And like, so I'll give you an idea. So in year one for music theory, we have obviously tests. And those are simple recollection tests. Do you remember what you studied? And that's like the most basic level of music theory. Or this note looks like this, or this note is worth so much value, or this is where the A note is, this is where the B note is. So those are very elementary things that unfortunately probably cannot be tested in any other way than traditional testing, right? And then there's a whole bunch of application-based testing. So you learn. So I was talking about the compositional module. So throughout the term, let's say we would analyze with the teacher different compositional works of different composers. And we would see why a certain A section sounded like that, and how that transition into the chorus was really good, and what made that sound so great. And you study, and over time, they become like compositional techniques. People study it and it becomes benchmarks and standards. The testing for it would be to use those same standards and benchmarks, but in your own context, putting your own melody on it, putting your own chord structure on it. So you don't have a choice but to sort of make things up. And at the end of it, it may sound terrible, but at least it's original. So like, there was a huge emphasis on being original, even if, I mean, there are exercises where you can be technically right. You checkmarked all the boxes that were required for that assessment, but the final piece of work sounded horrible as a musical piece. So it happens like that. Like technical things are right. Yeah, you checked off that box. You checked off, I used this thing. I used that thing. I made this. There were so many bars. There was so much. It was a 30-minute composition, whatever. But the end result is not good. It doesn't. So that's not how it works, right? Composers don't really compose like that. But you can learn a few shortcuts, and your intro to the world of composition can be like that by studying other people's works and knowing what works and what doesn't work and how and why. So. And for performance, it was basically everything was live. So all our drum exams we learn a whole bunch of things throughout the term. And at the end of the term, the application of those concepts on the drum kit live to a metronome is incredibly stressful. Like really, like you are completely vulnerable, completely naked. There's no amount. You can't look at your hand and write small words on it. And all these different types of mechanisms to help you cope. There's no such thing as, write a point and I will elaborate on it later. It's like all in the skin and you have to perform, right? So either you win or you are okay, or you float, or you literally drown and there's no coming back. So that's one. And then there's the group performance element where you play as part of a band at either an external venue or something. And that's really sort of nerve-wracking because you're playing to outside people. It's no longer within the construct of your university, within the people who know you and know that you're students, you're in the outside world, and you're just, so it's like a good way of assessing people, I think.
Wow, that's fantastic. Can you imagine that in an engineering degree, that you get assessed by the other people, the outside people? How beautiful.
I mean, I would hope that, and it's not even about being assessed by outside people. I just feel like the mode of assessment, because, currently I'm doing my master's in education. I'm learning so much about psychology and philosophy and just education and cognition and why people do what they do and how children react and why people grow up to be who they are and what are the things that really affect them. When do they develop the most during their childhood. And it's like it is possible to test engineering topics in a different way. Like, sure, there may not be a practical live outside simulate, but you can simulate real world problems. You can change the way you teach. You can change from being teacher led, teacher centric, theoretical based teaching. It can just be problem based teaching. It can just be activity led teaching. It can just be like you bring the motor of a car into the classroom and keep it there and be like, guys, deconstruct this now, and we'll talk about it as we go, as you encounter the problems. Not that, hey guys, I have this textbook with all the answers. Do you want some answers? Why don't you join my tuition later?
That's fantastic. Now, you studied Western music. You play in Western music. What has been the influence of a traditional Indian background and traditional Indian music, which India is very rich in, on your Western music evolvement?
Right.
Like you mentioned that your mother is a classical dancer.
Correct. It must have had some effect. I'm pretty sure. I've accompanied my mom to Kathak dance classes. I remember when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, just randomly, and I am sure all of that has had an effect. It's just that I don't think Indian classical music has such a big impact on my development and appreciation of Western music or my performance capabilities. Simply because I don't know why, but in India at that point, while growing up, Indian music was not that encouraged. It's not like, I particularly had probably a slightly non-conventional upbringing because, as you may know, my mom's Anglo-Indian and my dad also lived abroad for many years. We had a lot of Western culture and influence in our lives and while growing up. And it's not like they were listening to Ravi Shankar and Nikhil Banerjee at home every day. That was not in fact, they were listening to Stevie Wonder and George Michael. So that's where that's where my sort of growing happens, right? But I must say that much later, when I did meet Indian musicians who were part of my network, and I could somehow start to appreciate what Indian music was all about, and I learned when I grew up, I did take some concepts. And one of those concepts are like the idea of compound time, which is a very technical concept. I'm not going to talk about it much, but
can you explain that in 30 seconds?
Compound time, right? So in Western music, not in classical music, but Western contemporary music, time is measured always equally in like equal halves and equal number of parts, and it starts here and it stops here. In Indian music, they don't really look at time like that. It's just you start a phrase here and you end it there, and no one's counting how many slabs or like.
Okay, so what you're saying? So you're saying that like in the blues you have a 4-beat or an 8-beat or stuff.
There's like
that.
This repetitive form, and over here it's open. Yeah. It's open expression. There's like a bass line. Someone's playing a sarangi or something at the back, and Ravi Shankar is just improvising over that constantly, relentlessly, phrase after phrase. There's no such thing as, oh, here it starts and that's where it must end. He ends it whenever he wants to,
Brilliant. I'm going to ask you one last question, and then I think Aditya has to take over and see what the audience is asking. I'm sure they have a lot of questions. My last question to you is, what do you see as a future of formal music education in India? You just said that there are 4 or 5 formal music schools in India offering a degree at a graduation level. So what is the future of that in India? Because in India, every household literally tries to send their child to some music or the other. But after some time, when the child hits the class 8 or the 9,
class 8 is over.
The musical instrument has been junked, and the heavy school bag takes over. So what is the future in such a scenario?
No, I think that's a great question. Thank you for that question, Mr. Sen. And I think there's a very, very, very big future for music. And I'm not going to say Western music, because just general music education and the fact that people will take music as a career more and more. Because there's more awareness. There are more media entertainment channels today. The access to what is out there, and with the Coke studios of the day and this and that, people do have the opportunity to learn and understand a lot more what happens in the music industry. Our live music and entertainment industry is in a very novice stage. Like, all these big festivals that we have now, NH7 and stuff. Sure, they've been going on for a while, but they've been the only ones. And there's so much scope. It's only going to grow, provided obviously COVID-19 subsides and we can get back to normal life. I think there's a very big future for music education, especially within the K-12 market. I genuinely feel like that because I know I've spoken to so many principals myself. I know that a lot of them are very keen to have music education in their schools. It's just that for some reason or the other, it has not worked out. Either the education available wasn't available, or it was too expensive, or for different reasons, it was not available and not implemented. But now with the help of technology, costs can go down and large scale implementation is possible. Like, it's possible to do a music class from my home to 400 kids at 4 different schools all together, and they will actually take home something meaningful. And it won't be just a namesake music lesson, like the ones we used to have in school.
So are you saying that the COVID-19 is going to have a shift in our lives, the way we teach and maybe also learn music as we go forward, and you can actually touch many more people through this digital medium, virtual medium, and get it across instead of doing it for 4 or 5 people at the same time?
Correct.
Which also has an associated sort of a challenge. So what happens to live performance?
Exactly, right. So there are 2 sides to this story, and I'll answer the first side. Yes, I feel like just human beings are adverse to change. We don't like change. So the minute you say that, okay, this whole classroom format of education is not going to be there anymore, people are like, what? How is that possible? How will I ever learn anything? Right? Because real learning only happens within 4 walls and stuff like that. So it's not true. Those things are going to be debunked as we go. Like, through situations like this, we are going to be forced to do things, and we're going to actually see that there are so many benefits to this kind of a delivery. And we all know what the benefits of online education are. It is possible to do many things. Sure, within music there are few limitations, like you can't play in a band online. That technology is probably not out yet. If there is, I don't know. I'm looking for one so that I can play with my friends at this point. But a lot of it can be achieved. And at the level that I'm talking about basic music education in schools, 100% of my learning outcomes can be achieved by teaching online. So yes, and for part 2 of your question, I genuinely think live music is going to change forever. And there are a few different reasons. One is COVID, and sure, the gathering of people in one small area or large area. But the other one is also there's these themes such as global warming or climate change, as they call it now. And there are so many flights, and this band is flying so many times around the world, and so much carbon emission, and this and that. So there is a shift happening, and I feel like live music will also become hyper local, just like everything else. Just like I don't know, to give a small example, in this time of COVID, for some reason, if you know about the app Dunzo is working a bit better than Swiggy, because Dunzo kind of moved to the hyper local much faster than Swiggy, right? So I feel like live music will also be like that. You will start now going, and now people will start supporting their local artists, their neighborhood artists, the people who they can watch close to their houses, the people who they do not have to risk their lives to go watch. And what will that do? That will increase the talent pool, give everybody a healthy. So I just think it's a positive thing. I don't think it's a negative thing. And if you want to watch a really famous artist, you can go fly to that place and watch it when they're having an intimate setting or whatever, or you can watch it online. Like, the experience is the same. Audio video quality is probably better. You're not in a crowd. You have your drinks next to you as opposed to standing in a long queue with the possibility of not getting it at all. So I don't know. I think there are some benefits. They're talking about the India-Australia test series without any audience, right? And only a televised show. So things are clearly changing, and I feel like we need to adjust our expectations along with it.
Right. I think at this point, though I had many more questions, but at this point, I need to hand over to Aditya because I'm sure the audience, they would be having a ton of remarks or questions. So let's see what the audience have to say. Aditya.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sen. And it's always amazing to see people who are so passionate about their craft. So while Saurav was talking about music, I was noticing his expression, and I think Anita ji in the comments rightly pointed out earlier also the happiness with which he talks about music makes it very clear that how passionate he is about music, and probably that's why he's a good musician. Probably I'm not sure which subjects he likes or dislikes, but I'm pretty sure he wouldn't be talking about physics with so much passion. Yeah,
Civics or physics?
physics.
Okay, civics I'm passionate about.
The civics you're passionate about. Amazing. So we got to know one more of his passions. Great. And the good part is that the audience is increasing, so probably we are doing a good job today. Thank you so much, people.
I think Saurabh is doing a fantastic job.
Yeah. More importantly, Saurabh.
He creates magic wherever he goes. That's
Really
it.
nice.
Please.
The smile is infectious.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we have a few audience questions, and I would like to start with Pushkar's question. So Pushkar says, and it's a long one, so brace yourselves.
Sure.
Hi, Saurav. Since you are around musical instruments every day, do you think Indian musical instruments are losing their significance with the advancement of technology and more focus on Western instruments? And what steps should be taken to inspire kids to learn Indian musical instruments? Because a young kid today would like to play a guitar rather than a sitar or a tabla.
Very good question, Pushkar. Thank you. And those are the questions that I ask myself while developing curriculum for schools and stuff like that. What do we want our kids to know and be exposed to? Do we only want them to know the Katy Perrys and the Ariana Grandes of the world? Or is it important for them to know the Zakir Hussain and the Ravi Shankars of the world as well? And obviously, I am a total supporter of the latter. And I think it's important for them to know everything and be exposed to everything. And then they make valid choices. They make their own choices on what they like and what they dislike, right? So Indian instruments, right? Yes, the significance is probably going down a little bit. And technology, I am not so sure about it because I'm a little bit of a traditionalist when it comes to instrumentation myself. I am not so much about electronics. I like acoustic instruments. I like the fact that four people can play instruments and create magic, as opposed to, there are so many great things you can do with a computer and electronics and digital stuff. Don't get me wrong. It's just that that's not my cup of tea, right? And that's fine. And for Indian musicians, I feel like that will be fine. But there are many Indian musicians who do push the borders. Karsh Kale from New York, who's an Indian musician, he does things with electronics and tabla and stuff like that. So it is possible. It's not like it's not possible, but it's just like slightly out of the ordinary. It takes a lifetime to learn and master an Indian instrument, and probably like it would take a long time to fuse Western concepts and stuff. So what I think kids should do so that they can aspire to or sort of have an equal chance to pick either a Western music instrument or an Indian musical instrument is basically have the right exposure at a young age. That would entail they have the right musical education. And I'm very proud to say that the program we've developed at GSM for the K-12 sort of segment has, from grade kindergarten to grade 4, we don't teach them a style of music. We teach them fundamentals of every style of music. We teach them Hindustani music. And I don't even want to use the word teach. We expose them to Hindustani music, Western contemporary music, Western classical music, Brazilian music, Afro-Cuban music, flamenco music, Balinese music. So we try and basically just open up that student's world and show him that music exists in every culture, in every part of the world. There's so much going on. Nothing is better than the other. Sure, some things are more commercially better off than the others, but you can draw influence from anything and you can draw inspiration from any of these, right? So I think a very important part is parents should expose children to music, good music early in their life, and good music exists in every corner, right? Within Bollywood, there's great music. Within Bollywood, there's really bad music. Within Western contemporary music, there's great music. Within Western contemporary music, there's probably substandard music too. So I would encourage parents to develop good tastes for music and expose their kids to good music, and they will have questions themselves and want to do things like, if you keep playing Ravi Shankar in your house every day with Allah Raka Khan, at some point your kid is bound to ask, who is this? Which song is this? Which album is this? So like, a lot of it depends on that early development of the child.
Very true, because the music that I heard as a child, it really stuck with me. Now, whenever it plays, whether or not I like just the sound of that music, I really associate it with memories. So even maybe that plays a part, that, what kind of a music you hear while growing up, that really you might get attached to.
Totally.
So, very, very important point mentioned by Saurav here. And
which is why, just to give one other last little point, which is why most Indian musicians who aspire to play Western contemporary music somehow start a little bit later in their game. Like if you were living in America and you were an African American person going to a church every day and you're part of a gospel community and they're singing and they're playing and they're doing that stuff, you're seeing that stuff 2 years old. So like, you develop a lot faster. Your musical sensibilities develop a lot faster as opposed to you self-learning that stuff from age 13 onwards, let's say.
Right. And I think to add to kind of, the first point, which is will the digital transformation and the fact that you can produce beats digitally from any instrument, will that replace musicians? So to answer that from a technical standpoint, I think no, because it's like complementary. So it's not like the digital thing cannot do something that a human can't do. Obviously, it has its own specializations that obviously, especially what we mentioned in the starting, the machine learning thing. These days, machine learning is composing music, but at the same time, machine learning has a fundamental issue which might take some time to solve, if not a lot of time to solve, which
Right.
is that it cannot create stuff very well because it uses a huge volume of data and very high frequency, repeatable work that is to be done. And music is something which is a highly creative pursuit. So this ability to create, this ability to solve a problem that hasn't been solved before, or something that hasn't been done before and wasn't existent in the industry, or we don't have data for, that is something which humans specialize at, and machines will take a lot of time to mimic that. So yes, I think the involvement of people in the entertainment industry, in music industry, is very important, and I think there will always be some people skills which will win over the machine. So I think both can complement each other very well. Whether it can replace, most probably not. But yes, whether it can make a human's job easier if used well, yes.
Yeah.
That's my take on it as a non-musician, but as a person who understands tech a bit, maybe.
I just want to add on what Aditya said and what Saurav said at the beginning of his talk. That he talked about, when everybody learns music, they learn creativity and they learn leadership and all that. So I believe that as we go into life 2.0, which is life after COVID, one skill that we all need is creativity and imagination. That's going to be something that the future is going to be based on. Because
I entirely agree with you. There is it should be a slogan for a presidential campaign or something. In my opinion. But yes, I mean, if you see the trajectory as well, right? I mean, it's not something that doesn't exist already. You can see that industries are changing very fast, right? Like he was saying that there is no the jobs that exist today didn't exist 20 years ago, and hence our parents couldn't guide us on many things that perhaps they could have or they should have at that point. Same way, I feel like industry is going to change incredibly fast. The world is going to change incredibly fast. What is going to be normal is change. Change is going to be normal and a very fast pace of change.
Yep.
So what people need to adopt are skills where they are not upset by change. Their fundament, the core of their human abilities cannot be completely upset when there's some change being introduced. And that's the only thing really. I mean, even words like creativity and all of that, it can be on the side. The point is you need to be okay with change. And if you've grown up all your life thinking, from age 10, if you've grown up thinking I will be an engineer, then you were an engineer, then you took up a job and you thought, okay, this is my role in life. I am going to contribute as an engineer to society, and that's it. It's not going to cut it anymore because come COVID, your engineering job doesn't exist. And like, you know, you will be forced to either upskill or change your vocation or do something else, or and happiness aside, right? This is just practicality.
Absolutely. Yeah. Aditya, sorry about that.
No problem.
No, I think it's something great, you guys added, and it's very important to adapt and to relearn and to unlearn, as Mr. Sen has been
Yes,
repeatedly saying.
absolutely.
And as
Unlearn
Saurav
is
says,
very important. Yeah.
yeah, and as Saurav says, I think not only presidential slogan, in my belief, Mr. Sen should be the one running for president.
No way. No way. No way.
But I think today, and sorry, audience, I think we have a lot of audience questions, but since, for the lack of time, we'll only have to address the last audience question from you. And we'll be giving a special space to the host of this podcast usually. And he's itching to ask questions, so he has asked it in the comments today since he's not with us right now.
Sure.
So Samant. Samant says, in the same way, okay, he starts the question with, I understand that the passion and doing what you love cannot be measured. But for the sake of the question, how does one quantify his or her achievements in the music industry? Is it when is it when you make a full-time living from doing what you love, or is it when you attain fame and fandom? How do you personally quantify a successful music career? And then he gives an example. He says, in the same way as a comedian would in basement comedy club performance for expenses versus a Netflix special.
Absolutely. Great question. Uh, that's, I think, the golden question, right? Like, when do you think you've made it? Or when are you actually satisfied with what you're doing? Um, to give you my personal opinion, I don't believe in that concept as much as I used to. I used to believe in one path, end goal, particular outcome, fixed outcome. Those are concepts I don't believe in any longer. I don't believe that there is one path to achieve anything. There are many different paths to achieve the same thing, in fact. And I don't believe that what you set out to achieve at the beginning is what you actually intend to actually want by the end. Like, your taste will evolve, what you want to be, who you want to be, how you want to contribute to society evolves as you go, and you make choices in that time, right? So personally speaking, for me, I consider myself successful when I'm able to provide for myself and my near and dear ones around me uh, through the medium of something that I love to do. That's my take on it. And it could be anything, right? Sure, does it sort of, is it like a mental thing that, oh, am I only going to make it when I go on that international tour? What's your benchmark, right? A national tour, a city tour, an international tour, playing with Arijit Singh, playing with a foreign artist. What's the benchmark, right? I think everybody has their own benchmark. For me, the minute as I grew older and over the past 5 years, especially throughout my professional career, I have less attached myself to concepts like those fixed concepts. Everything is movable in my life, and I'm very happy to keep it that way, keep it fluid and keep it change. Wherever I put my head is home, and there's nothing more I could want than to have a sustainable career in music.
Yeah, so love of the process mixed with sustainability and practicality is what I think sort of take on that is.
Correct. Yeah.
Um, and sort of, I think I said the last audience question, but then somebody asked such a good audience question that I am going to have to combine that with, your last take on it. So I would like to ask you a two-level question. So Anita ji asks,
Yeah.
when coming to the point of choosing music as a career after schools, what is the role of career counseling according to you? As you said, there are so many career options in music, and I would also want you to answer that from the point of view of True School of Music and what your advice to generally upcoming musicians is. Like, what all careers they can have a look at while wanting to.
Can I just quickly turn on the lights? It's really dark in here. Just give me a second.
And then there was light.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
And then there was light.
Okay, cool. Career counseling, music, and in the context of TSM, right? Sure, I think career counseling can help. Usually people that pick music early in their lives and are sure that they want to do it professionally don't really need much counseling, because in my experience at least, they're mostly very passionate. They know what they want to do. Yes, at some point they kind of need some guidance on how to pivot their careers to make sure it's sustainable. You can't be too idealistic when it comes to, I think, any creative profession. You cannot draw strict boundary lines. I mean, you can, but then you have to be privileged. So if you want to make your career sustainable, you need to sort of have some fluidity to work with. And at some point in your musical career, you may need some guidance and advice onto which path to choose, right? Because the early path is quite well defined. Like at age 8, if you like making beats, you're a young kid and you play with a lot of software and you like making beats, you're like, okay, cool, I should do music production, most likely. Or if you like playing an instrument, you're like, okay, cool, maybe I should study this instrument for a few more years. Or if your only passion was, I really like writing music, then you should study composition. And those things are usually very clear to students themselves early on. Where I do think counseling helps for musicians is when it comes to that whole career point of view. It's not so much for the studying part, but it's more like, what do you do with the skills and knowledge you've learned, right? And one of the big things that musicians miss out on most of the time is that they are not limited to only contributing to the music industry. They have enough skill and a diverse skill set with which they can contribute to other industries as well, and across sort of work lines.
So I think if I were
part of the TSM, right? I have to sort of touch upon that. So in TSM, there's a good question. I should talk about TSM for a minute here. We are a contemporary music school that sort of predominantly caters to kids who are who want to take this up as a profession and are serious about music education, right? We offer music performance courses where you learn how to play an instrument, you learn how to compose, and all of those things, learn how to play in a band, learn to play with other people. We have a music production course where you learn how to create music with the help of a computer or software and devices, software and hardware. We have Hindustani vocals, which is actually a very unique course, doesn't exist anywhere in the world, in my opinion. It's a playback course. It particularly teaches you how to be a Hindustani playback vocalist. So what are the skills you need to be the next Shreya Ghoshal, right? And we have a huge DJ department, which is really great. We have a tie-up with the best DJ school in the world, which is Point Blank London. We teach some of their courses. We get their certifications to give out. We have tie-ups with the University of Hertfordshire in the UK. So students that finish 2 years of our sound engineering program at TSM can go for another year and finish their degree, their MSc in audio engineering at the University of Hertfordshire. It's a great program. These things never existed in India, and it's really, really, really very exciting time. And I feel like, and the best part is you can get all of this at a fraction of the cost. I'm sure you may probably have to go to Delhi or to Bombay. You still have to pay and stay and learn. And it's not the cheapest, but it's a fraction of what you would pay if you had to go abroad to get the same thing. So I think it's a win-win, and people who are really passionate should pursue it. And at TSM, we really believe in being able to give everybody a chance to study music. We offer scholarships, we offer different kinds of fellowships and prizes and competitions and stuff like that. So we're always trying to look, and we do a lot of like NGO work also. We work in Bombay with the Bal Asha Trust, with the Salam Bombay. There are all these different trusts that we help underprivileged education get access to music ed, basic music ed. So yeah.
That's a really good job by you and True School of Music, Saurav, and would really like to congratulate all of you and the team, for such amazing efforts. I think it's very important to ensure access of music to not only people, obviously, who can afford it, which you are doing, but especially, to people who can't afford it, but probably are as talented or even more talented than the people who can afford it. So that's a really great initiative. And with this, I would really like to thank you so very much for appearing for the podcast and for taking so much time out of your schedule. We've already gone 15 minutes over time.
No problem at all. I'm very happy to be here. I could speak about this stuff all day.
Yeah,
and that's the passion, I think. That's the passion, I think, which every one of us needs to have for the career option that we are pursuing, and that's a great insight to draw out of it. And Samant from the audience has given a nice vote of thanks. So thank you so very much for answering, Saurav. And it's a pleasure to have you on our podcast. Looking forward for your return for 2.0, where I can host you and interact directly.
So I would love that.
Great. So thank you so much, Saurav. Thank you so
Thanks
much,
a
Mr.
lot,
Sain.
guys. Thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute pleasure to be here, and I hope something of what I said may have been helpful to you, or has been able to give you a perspective on what your life could be like. There are limitless possibilities out there, and I would encourage everyone to really rethink their lives and their career choices, especially in this time during the COVID-19 pandemic. It's a great time to reinvent yourself. Look at it does look dark. I have to agree. It does look dark and gloomy, but I feel like there are lots of positives on the other side, and I can't wait for the post-COVID life. So thank you, Mr. Sen. Thank you, guys at ProBano. I'd be happy to come back another time.
Definitely, and I think audience is already wanting a 2.0, so you'll have to come back another time. And then it was a pleasure to host you and learn from you. I think that the passion which you exuberate while describing music is what I think helps us understand that if anybody follows and discovers their passion, it's very nice for all of us to pursue a career in that rather than do something which our parents suggest and we don't want to do as much.
Yeah.
So with this, I would like to say, as I think from this podcast, we could understand that have fun, keep learning, keep listening to music. Students, don't hesitate from thinking differently. And parents, please support your children in whatever endeavor they are interested in. And I think, you'll be also helping your student to pursue their passion. With this, I would like to also thank Pragya, the person who is behind the scenes, the rockstar who is running the stream. And you'll see very soon hosting, her hosting as well. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much to the audience for so many nice, insightful questions and for watching us talk about our careers for 45, no, not for 45, I think 60 plus 15, 75 minutes straight. So thank you so much. And stay safe, wash your hands. We'll see you tomorrow for the 40th Daily Life Career Guidance podcast. We are inching towards 50. So very excited for that. So we'll see you tomorrow live at the same time, 6 p.m. So yeah, take care of yourself, take care of your family, and like ProBano's page and turn on post notifications so that you can understand when the next podcast is starting. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming in, and we'll see you
guys.
soon.
It was absolute pleasure. Thank you, Mr. Sam. Thank you, Pragya. See you all soon.
Yeah, see you soon, guys. Ciao. Take care.